Okay, this hearing will come to order, and our next testifier are from the Pennsylvania Towing Association, Mr. Ron Bresler and Mr. Shane Staley from the PA Towing Association. Gentlemen, if you would. Is there... And also, Kathy is Kathy Tennis. Thank you for being here today, and you can begin your testimony when ready. Do we have their testimony?
I'd like to first start out Shane Staley with the Pennsylvania Towing Association, and just thank you, the committee, for allowing us the opportunity to present our thoughts. I'm going to start you out with a timeline of how things began. Back in February of 2011, I found a request for information posted on the Commonwealth's procurement website. The RFI was titled Emergency Towing Referrals by Pennsylvania State Police, PSP Tow 11. The point of contact listed was Director Deshaun Lewis. On February 19th, 2011, I emailed Director Lewis with questions from our members, which I've attached Exhibit A. I did not receive a response. On February 25th, 2011, I emailed Director Lewis again with questions from our members, attached Exhibit B. Later that day, Director Lewis responded with an email referring me back to the DGS website where the RFI was posted, Exhibit C. I was told answers to our questions would be posted there and that it may take at least 2 weeks. With the inability to get any information for our members, the Pennsylvania Towing Association began its own investigation into the RFI. Our investigation found that auto return was one of the main driving forces. We located an internal company memo from auto return that opened our eyes to what was really going on, which I have attached Exhibit D. Among other things, the memo discusses political relationships and making authorities aware of how much revenue and profits towing companies were generating for themselves. On March 24, 2011, Pennsylvania Towing Association President Ron Bresler sent a letter to Director Lewis, which I have attached Exhibit E, asking for the state police to let our association help them solve their emergency towing dispatch problems. He also asked if they would keep us informed of any changes regarding this RFI. With the RFI deadline approaching and very little information being made available to the towing industry, my own company, River Drive Service Center, responded to the solicitation in hopes that our response would at least include us in future discussions regarding the program. It did not. August 9, 2011, the PTA finally had its first meeting with PSP regarding the program in Harrisburg. Trooper David Pallone informed the board that he was charged with instituting the third-party dispatch program and that towing-related lawsuits were the driving force behind it. We informed him that a third-party dispatch program would be extremely difficult to operate successfully across Pennsylvania for various reasons. We also expressed our interest in the Towing Associations operating the program in order to maintain public safety and professional standards in the towing industry. Later that month, Trooper Pallone met with Ron Bresler and myself in Morgantown to further discuss the program. In that meeting, we were told that third-party dispatching for emergency towing was 100% going to be reality. Trooper Pallone also informed us that he was advocating the PTA's ability to perform this service. Trooper Pallone left PSP later that fall, and we unsuccessfully attempted numerous times to find out his replacement and further information on the program. Over the next 2 years, we constantly monitored the DGS procurement website without ever finding any more RFIs or RFPs relating to the State Police Third-Party Towing Initiative. On September 11, 2013, the Towing Association became aware that the State Police had posted a solicitation on their own website regarding third-party towing dispatch. I immediately emailed the listed contact, Procurement Manager Maggie Boyer, in Exhibit F. The next morning, Ms. Boyer responded that the solicitation deadline had passed and it was now in review process, Exhibit G. I returned to the State Police website and the solicitation had been removed. On September 30th, 2013, we found out auto return pilot program was to begin in Western PA. On November 26, 2013, the PTA board finally had a meeting with Ray Krause of Auto Return and Lieutenant Wendt from the State Police. They explained the pilot program and how it would be rolled out. Lieutenant Wendt informed us that third-party towing dispatch was initiated to alleviate State Police staffing issues and eliminate their handling of towing-related questions and complaints. When asked how the Towing Association could be excluded from this initiative, we were told it was an unfortunate oversight and that we would be included in the pilot program review. Since then, we have been briefed by Lieutenant Wendt in monthly meetings at State Police headquarters regarding the pilot program's status. As a member of the towing community in Pennsylvania, I have a few concerns. It certainly appears that the Towing Association was specifically excluded from the solicitation. Why would the solicitation be posted on the Pennsylvania State Police website when it was originally posted on the DGS website for procurement, and that is where we were directed to check back for further information? Why would the State Police choose to look for an out-of-state vendor without even speaking to a known interested party in Pennsylvania? And how will this program affect the safety of the motoring public?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the rest of the members. My name is Ron Bressler. I'm the president of the Pennsylvania Towing Association. Every day of a tower's life is interrupted several times by an unplanned, unavoidable, unscheduled, inconvenient hazard that affects the general public. We are immediately yoked with the full responsibility of how to solve what has resulted from the decisions of others, good, bad, or indifferent, none of which we take part in. The Pennsylvania State Police are arguably the most demanding customer many towers service. Yet they hold the least amount of responsibility as to the liability of the task to be carried out or the method or means by which to pay for the services requested. Pennsylvania State Police has the unique ability to demand services from the private sector's towing industry without thought of compensation. They are, in effect, a very large company demanding services of many very small family-owned and operated businesses that must yield to their demands or face expensive traffic scrutiny or retaliation. State employees are strictly forbidden to accept free meals in restaurants or demand free service at the garage or at the lawnmower shop. But when it comes to the towing community, there seems to be a different standard of tolerance. We professional towers take our careers very seriously. A career in this industry is an enormous commitment, a commitment of a lifetime, often a multi-generational passion that is motivated by having a servant's heart. Quite frankly, we try to help people, all people. We have no way of predicting traffic incidents, but are expected to have millions of dollars invested and be poised to clear any incident in a timely manner. We have very few legislative exemptions in which to quick clear the unimaginable and are given full responsibility, even to the extent of what may be leaking on our property after the casualty arrives in our yard as a result of clearing an accident. We are additionally held liable for the accident cleanup and site restoration long after traffic flow has been restored. We faithfully give up family events, once-in-a-lifetime celebrations, to service the motoring public, the criminals, the poor decision-makers of our society. Should we not be entitled compensation and respect for this? Our job is also dangerous. As if working along the side of the road in all kinds of weather and rushing traffic were not enough, we're also exposed to whatever the cargo may be, ranging from explosives to radioactive, but there are many other dangers as well that we fail to consider sometimes. Last September, I traveled to Chattanooga, Tennessee to join many towing family members who had lost loved ones and whose names were being added to the Wall of the Fallen. There were 55 names added last year, towers who were killed in the line of duty, some of which had been hit by passing vehicles. Some had been killed while performing a difficult recovery, and even a few who were shot in their own offices by the disgruntled customer attempting to get his vehicle. Regardless of the circumstance, you could feel the hurt of each family member as they walked to the podium when their loved one's name was called. This was personal for me, as I too last year lost an employee and friend in the line of duty. I am certain that just like the Pennsylvania State Police, there are few in our industry who are less than reputable. But to paint all towers with a broad brush of unscrupulous tactics is unfair. I would assert that all PA towers live with a fear of retaliation that could result from expressing their opinion. The Pennsylvania Towing Association has always offered our support to the Pennsylvania State Police, and we acknowledge many positive working relationships throughout the state. We invite their input and their presence to our statewide trade show and value the tireless efforts of many of the troopers that work together with our industry to clear various highway incidents. The Pennsylvania Towing Association respectfully requests that we as an industry would be viewed not as the opposition, but rather as a stakeholder in the pursuit of restoration of commerce in the Commonwealth. Using the auto return pilot program as an example, I feel much suspicion and unrest could have been mere problem solving at a stakeholders roundtable meeting. However, with the approach taken, specifically not including the towing industry, has proven unsettling for all parties involved. With the introduction of new policies or mandates such as the new salver procedures, it would be highly beneficial for Pennsylvania State Police to consider the input of the Pennsylvania Towing Association as we work to help them achieve their goal. Without the input of the towing industry, we can only speculate as to what state police motives are. The Pennsylvania Towing Association has been instrumental in working with legislators to draft amendments. We volunteer countless hours working together with local fire and police agencies all across the state as we train and practice working together to promote safety for all the agencies. We value their expertise in matters that concern their equipment and their procedures. They, too, value us. In closing, I can't speak to what has caused the Pennsylvania State Police to view the towing industry in Pennsylvania as the opposition. Possibly may have been the actions of a few unprofessional operators in our industry. But it's just as possible that it could have been Pennsylvania State Police asserting their authority. I can only hope we can move past this line of thinking and come to the realization that we each gain strength when we can rely on each other. We need to identify that it's the traffic incident, the snowstorm, the ice, the irresponsible party that abandoned their vehicle that is the opposition, and that we need to work together for a resolution. I hope we can move forward in a positive direction. I'd like to thank all the towers that are represented here today. We'd like to thank Pennsylvania State Police as they do protect us all the time on the highways. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the members.
Thank you, Ron. And I'll just add my comment to yours, is that there's nothing more troubling to me in this whole process is the fact that the towers were left out of the stakeholder meetings. I view you as a partner in this whole emergency response scheme that we have here in Pennsylvania, and you're an important part. The roads don't get cleared until you show up to do it. Our first responders don't have the capability. Our state police don't have the capability. You're the only group of people that have the capability of clearing our highways. And really I think that's why I'm so involved in this, is because it truly bothers me that you are not part of this negotiation, the stakeholder meetings. We would not move a piece of legislation in this House until we sat down with all the stakeholders. We may not agree with you on every piece of input that you have, but at least you have a right to have your voice heard. And that's why this hearing today, to me, is so important, is that, pretty much to give the towers their day in court, because you were denied it in the stakeholders meetings. So I do appreciate your testimony and being here today. For a question, Representative Dick Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Staley, do I understand from your testimony that you were anxious to present a plan to handle the dispatch issue with the state police?
Yes, we worked to try and develop something to solve their issue, because, as I expressed in my testimony, that we felt the only way that you could do this statewide and maintain professional towing standards would be if the towing industry conducted its own program.
Can you share with us today what that plan would be?
It never fully developed, because we were never, we worked on it, but never ever had any further input from the state police.
I see. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The representatives in the front row, anybody with questions over at the table there? Representative Barbin.
Maybe I'll go up to the My question is, I'm assuming that there are members of your towing association that have not been included in the auto return system. And can you give the committees some understanding of why people aren't signing up to be part of this program?
Well, I think each individual tower, we are an association of a bunch of small business people with varying business minds and varying business models, each one of us. So I believe that the towers are making what they feel is the right decision for their business. I can't represent the towers as a group that way, because each individual has his own business model.
Do you have any idea what percentage of the towing association has decided that they want to participate with the auto return pilot program?
It's a very, very small percentage. It's a much larger percentage that isn't.
Okay, and is the main concern of the towing association the fact that they're not going to be provided a fair shake with the system, or why is it that it's such a small percentage?
Mostly what I'm hearing is the concern that the standards of the towing community have been decreased.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And I guess this is for anyone in the panel who wants to answer this. I don't know if you can put a finger on this. What is the cost for your company to comply with the field regulation 6-2? I know there's different requirements for insurance, for background checks, for fences, around your facility, different grades of towers. Is there any way to put a number to that? I guess all your businesses are so different.
I could throw out a few numbers just from my own business. $28,000 for cameras for our secure impound.
Wow.
I have $53,000 in engineering fees just for the lot. I have $20-some thousand in the fence, and that doesn't get into the $1 million worth of equipment, the towing equipment, and staffing it.
How much insurance are you required by, or does the field regulation require a specific number of insurance that you must carry, or just different types of insurance?
I'm not sure on what they require.
I'd have to let that up to you. I'm not sure that it specifies. I'm a turnpike contractor, so that does. So I can't speak to non-specific, but I don't think so.
Do you know if the auto return contract requires a specific amount of liability insurance?
Minimum of. Do you know what it is?
I believe it does. I don't know what that amount is.
Okay. Does anybody have a number? What that might?
In the field, in your book, in the field regulator, it'll tell you the amount of insurance that's required for each level of towing that you're doing.
Okay.
In the book,
So a light wrecker, a medium wrecker, and a heavy wrecker.
$500,000, and I think it's $1 million fine.
It's three
Okay.
million aggregate,
Okay.
isn't it?
Yeah.
3 million aggregate from seafood.
Recovery, but it's set forth in that part 6-2.
But I believe
Okay.
it starts about $500,000 liability coverage.
Okay. In one of the questions I'd asked the people from Auto Return was about one of the towers that testified on his behalf was about a dual rate schedule. Okay, a rate schedule for I guess if you have a towing operation that is partially in the pilot program, but you could still operate outside of the pilot program, right? You would have two different rates, a set of rates for the rates that you tow for the state police, a set of rates that you tow for auto return, and if you do municipal towing, you would have a set of rates for those. Am I correct in thinking that?
It would be very easy to see that occur.
And every one of them could be different.
Yes.
And I'm trying to get to where's the fairness for the consumer in that type of a system? I mean, it seems very unpredictable. You don't know. I mean, you don't know what you're being charged. And under our legislation that was passed 2 years ago, it said you had to post a rate. So you would pretty much then have to, in your office, you would have to have posted out inside your office 3 different rate schedules, which I would assume if I was your consumer and I came in and saw you were charging me a different rate because you towed me for auto return or different, I'd kind of be pretty upset with you, you know? So,
Correct.
911's ability to dispatch. Is that one of the issues that you said you explored was the dispatching being done directly from 911 and there would be no cost at all to our taxpayers, our consumers, would receive no cost?
Yes. That's been a topic a lot of our members have brought up, and it appears that would be an easier way that's amicable with all parties involved to handle it. As a personal, my own business, the municipal towing that we do through the 911 system for the county is very straightforward, and they almost never give you the wrong information. I mean, I can't say anything bad about it.
Are you currently dispatched now from the 911 system, or are you dispatched from a police communication officer?
State police were dispatched through a PCO, a communication officer. For my local police, it's through the 911 center.
Okay, so they would have the capability. Ron?
I can also speak to that. My business operates out of 3 different counties, so we're dispatched in a mirage of ways. We get 911 from Berks County. We get 911 from Lancaster County. We get 911 from Chester County. Occasionally, we're dispatched from Fire Ban, and sometimes we're obviously dispatched by the Turnpike Commission. And so there are lots of other dispatch ways that if you do municipal towing in more than one location, if you're doing municipal towing or whatever in more than one location, we're already using a bunch of different dispatch centers, and it's all familiar.
I'd like to point out one other thing, that the individual companies sitting right here at this table right now have probably 200 years of experience in towing, and I mean, even the police presence that was here, I doubt has that much experience in towing related accidents. And I'd like to hit home the point that, I mean, we should have been included. We're the number one stakeholder, I would say.
Oh, I would agree. I would absolutely agree. Do you expect to see response times I think Auto Return was made a very large boast, saying that they expect to see the response time of the tower greatly reduced. Do you see that as a possibility with the current system that they have?
I don't see how it could reduce it at all. At absolute best case scenario, I think it has to add, a minute. I mean, it's got to add something. It can't reduce.
I have a hard time and understanding that, how it would be reduced. The first responders, I think you've had contact with first responders through this. Our firefighters, our emergency response people have all expressed concerns to us that they think this is going to lead to much longer times. Most of our firefighters are volunteers. That means they will have to spend more time out at the accident scene. What are you hearing from first responders?
Honestly, I've had a couple conversations with them as basically what's going on, what's happening. And I believe Kurt's going to be able to address that a lot better because he's in the affected pilot area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And maybe you can clear up the abandoned vehicle issue that I've raised with Auto Return about how the charge would be if there's, and I just can't believe I think there's something, how many abandoned vehicles are towed off our highways today? Do you have any number on that?
I don't have a number on that, although everything that I was led to believe, when the abandoned vehicle would get towed, you would still have to pay the fee to Auto Return whether the vehicle was claimed or not. And that's why there was the difference between the $35 and the $22.50, because to compensate for the ones that you weren't getting paid for.
And you currently get $15 for towing an abandoned vehicle. Is that?
We're supposed to.
You're supposed to?
Yes.
Why don't you?
I don't know how to track it.
Okay.
It's very difficult to ever know what $15 you're collecting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And I guess my last question for you is the contract requires you to give up your right to sue. Is that I question whether that's in our Pennsylvania law is legal to force someone into a contract that requires them to give up their right to sue. I don't know if your association has looked into that.
Our main concern with that, yes, giving up your right to sue, but it was almost barely touched on about their arbitration panel, and is this something that would be developed in the future? And they didn't really say who was going to be on this panel. Was it going to be the towing community? Was it going to be Auto Return? Definitely, that's a major concern of ours.
Okay. I'm looking to see if I had another question. Okay. Any of the other members with question? Representative Costa, please. Oh, good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Young lady, thank you, and gentlemen, thank you for being here. I guess the question that I have for you is, being approved on the state police current list an automatic approval by Auto Return, or do they have to go through your application again? In other words, if I did everything the state police wanted and I got licensed by the state police or granted the ability to tow, and they came to me and said, we'd like you to tow for auto, put an application, or is it just automatic that you would be called?
We can't answer that.
I'm told that the list is presented to Auto Return of current police towers, and my assumption from those conversations is that you would just have to fill out the contract with Auto Return and you would be approved.
Okay, so you'd have to agree to their contract.
Right.
Yeah. And I do agree that, when you said the $15 is hard to track, I think that I was talking to a couple of folks here, I think that we need to look at maybe a statewide database so that we can keep track of a lot of the things that you folks do. I commend you for coming out, and this is about as full as I can see the room has been since budget time, and it's commendable. And when your feathers are ruffled and your careers and your stuff are at stake, you want to be heard. And I'm glad that Chairman Barrar and Chairman Marsico and everybody actually had this hearing, and I'm proud to be part of it. And I thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Representative James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, panel. Just for clarification, do the Pennsylvania Towing Association, this group here, does it represent towers all across Pennsylvania, the entire state?
We do have members all across the state.
Would you say you have consensus then from that group that you're not in favor of proceeding down the road we're going? Is that a fair statement?
Well, it's kind of an unfair question because it's such a small part that's been the pilot area, and we have many more members on the other end of the state, so I'd hate to.
Well, that's actually exactly why I asked. I wondered what kind of response you were getting from Eastern Pennsylvania. I mean, they know about this, right?
Yeah, everybody's scared and nervous.
Okay.
And I'm sure they're watching today to try to figure out what business decision they can make out of that.
And I'm going to repeat myself here.
Go ahead.
May I?
Yes.
Okay. This morning's testimony revealed that one of the chief goals, if not the goal, of the state police was to avoid future costs of litigation with members of your association. Mm-hmm. Can you comment on that in any way? I mean, why is this happening? What's causing this?
I really, I have no way of knowing what those lawsuits were about, and if they were, surely, I can only speculate, and that's all I'm going to do. But surely if they were, I don't know what they were, but if they were inappropriate actions of the state police or something, I can't imagine they could be exempt even with a contract. If they were inappropriate, again, it's tough for me to comment because I don't have the background on the cases.
Mr. Staley?
I don't have background on the cases either. Along that line, I think it's interesting that one of the state police's main concerns was to transfer their litigation risk to auto return, and their auto return is poised to be a great dispatch program. I don't see, the state police indicated that dispatching was a minor part of what they were trying to do, yet that's what auto return excels at, according to their testimony. So I'm not sure why that fit is a good fit to transfer the litigation. Does it transfer it? I guess if you sign away all rights to sue, it does, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No more questions?
Thank you. One of my concerns in the past has always been the lack of a due process ability on behalf of the towers when the state police take you off the towing rotation list because of a complaint or an issue they may have with you. Does the due process contained in the contract, or if there is any due process contained in the contract with auto return, does that give you any better voice than you currently have now?
I don't believe so. I believe we're pretty much in the same position we were, but I don't believe that gives us a level of insulation at all.
I think it would be worse in the fact that the police would have the ability to say, it's auto return's decision, and.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you wouldn't be able to, at least now you do have very little but some remedy to go into court. Under auto return, you can only appeal to arbitration from what I've read in the contract. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, which is still limits your ability for any type of due process hearing if you were suspended from them. So, Representative Costa for a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if you can answer this, but if we, this legislative body, gave the legislative approval for the towing organizations to take that $35 or $22.50, whichever that auto return is getting, and it would probably amount to anywhere between $3 and $5 million, and transfer it into the state police fund, and it would cover their legal expenses plus their other expenses as far as inspections. Do you believe your members would have an objection to that? So in other words, we're reinventing the wheel here, it seems like, and I don't think it's necessary. If it's a matter of that $35, I'd rather see it go to the PSP to maintain what they do. I understand they want out of it, and they say the major reason is, litigation. Well, if we give them the money to cover litigation, and we give them the money to cover their inspections and stuff, I think it's a much better idea than reinventing the wheel and putting a lot of our businesses in jeopardy. So do you believe that your people would go along with something like that rather than an auto return type deal?
Yes, I know that most of the people I talk to are not in favor of auto return, so pretty much.
And I'll say that I believe all the towers would much rather do anything if they had any control and steering in it. I mean, we'd much rather work together as towers to work for what would work better for our industry, so that, because we're stakeholders. Everybody in this room is a stakeholder.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm speaking for myself and hopefully for a lot of the members here. I would rather see the money, if we're going to collect anything, go to the Pennsylvania State Police. I would rather see that the process that we're doing now continue, and I would rather see that everybody would, we don't need to reinvent this wheel. It may be a simple solution to this. Okay? Thank you very much.
Representative Saccone for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You testified just a few minutes ago that you said your members, correct me if I'm wrong, your members might not be signing up for the program because the standards were decreased. That's the term you used.
Yes.
And my question is, I'm under the assumption that the state police standards are higher than the municipal standards. So how are the standards decreased?
Decreased from what the state police standards were. The main example was that in order to be a light duty tower, you were required to have a rollback and a conventional wrecker for recoveries. And now you are only required to have a rollback.
Okay, I see that. And sir, your association, are some of the members, obviously most of the members, because the pilot program, it just encompasses a small area of Pennsylvania, most of the members aren't, most of your members aren't in this, but are some of your members currently operating in this system, this pilot program? Do you represent some of the members that are in the system now?
We have membership. We have membership that is in the system. Yes.
And what do they say about it? They're your members also. What's the feedback from them?
I haven't heard any negative reports.
Okay. And I don't want to get off track, but the $15 to tow an abandoned vehicle, does that even pay for the gas to go out there? I don't understand that. I don't understand.
I don't understand it either.
That doesn't make any sense to me. But at the same time, though, I want to be fair. At the same time, you can't keep track of how many abandoned vehicles and whether you got the $15 or not with all the technology we have for accounting and so forth.
I can keep track of what I turn in, but when I get the $15 check, it's a $15 check.
It doesn't say.
With no tracking.
There's no tracking of it. Okay. All right. And one last, I guess, question or comment. I have full faith that our 911 centers, especially I'm from Allegheny County, our 911 center is top notch. I know that they could handle this, but I worry about when people say there's no cost, because I am sure, I'm confident that if we turned over all this to the 911 centers, they would say, well, there's a cost to this. We got increased calls. And maybe, even though and I know the towers told me it's a small amount compared to what they do now. They do exponentially more of these than the state police does. But there has to be a cost associated with if they would pick that up.
I would think there is a cost as well. The cost that currently the state police are paying, so to speak, and they're trying to transfer it. I would argue they're not transferring that cost to auto return, and then ultimately to the motorist. I guess we're just shifting the cost around.
Okay.
To alleviate, they wanted to be out of the towing business.
Highlight parts.
I got you. Thank you very much for your testimony.
That I need to read. Okay. Are there other questions from members? I'd like to thank the panel for being here today, and we're going to move on to our next panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next panel of testifiers, if they would, and you're going to have a tough time getting all at the table. I'm hoping we just have a couple spokesperson. Mr. Curtis Hovis, President Hovis Auto Wrecking, Inc., Mr. Eddie Whiteman, owner Eddie's Collectibles in Erie County, Mr. Mark McConnell, owner, McConnell Sunoco, Lawrence County, Mr. John Malinsky, owner, Malinsky Towing, Butler County, and Mr. Dave Norris, owner of D&D Salvage, Westmoreland County, and Mr. Dan Donald, Moore's Auto Wrecking, Beaver County. If you can get the people who are going to answer your questions for it. It's just two of you?
Predominantly, Ed and myself are going to do most of the testifying.
Good.
The other gentlemen are representative of various counties, and in the event you want to ask them how it's going in their county, they would be better able to speak specifically to that county and what they see the effects to be.
Okay.
So for the question and answer side, it would relate to those gentlemen, but for the presentation side, it's Eddie and myself.
Great. When you guys are set up, you can begin your testimony when you're ready. Okay?
Sure. No, I'll go first. Let's get this fired up here.
I'm with you.
Make sure that microphone is close to you so we can hear you well.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
There's one in front of you.
Try that one out. All right. Here we are. Good afternoon. I'm glad to be here today so I can give you what an auto return vendor goes through.
By the way, he is an auto return vendor.
I am what you want to refer to as the algorithm. I'm the guy that doesn't get the calls because my competition's 100 yards closer to more prospective areas than myself. The issue was brought up, and I was told that the system does not have the ability to show a rotation. The old system, we rotated. The dispatcher runs a log. Every state police barracks runs a tow log. It's a handwritten log. It goes in order of who towed what car, when they towed it. Kind of antiquated, but it works. If you take a call, accept a call, they put your name down, the date, and what was towed. Then the next time, the next vendor will get it. Very fair, worked out perfect. If the vendor wasn't available, no answer, then back to me. And I think that's what it is. I mean, I'm 48 years old. My first tow call, I was 4 years old with my father, family business. I don't know anything but this business. I proudly can say that I bleed blue for this industry and for the police and the safety people that we do, first responders that we work with. It's relationships that have been lifetime built. The trust of knowing what my move's going to be, what their move's going to be. We know each other. It's a well-oiled machine. Now we got dirt in the clog. It's not smooth. We need to make it happen. Am I a little upset about the way things are happening? Yeah, the reason I am, it's not about me or the money. It's about the industry of the people that have sacrificed so much and are left with holding and wondering, is this company coming to take our business? We obviously heard Mr. Wickers lie to us about owning a towing company, owning storage facilities. How do we know that they aren't going to come here? Ray Krause, representative, asked me questions about a towing storage facility that an insurance company uses. What am I supposed to think? Is that what he wants? They want more. They want a bigger piece of this pie. And they're willing to do what it takes. I'm going to show you some stuff right now that's going to kind of blow your mind. We talk about professionalism, we talk about higher standards, regulations, and we talk about following the rights of everyone. We'll start off with some locations. I'll show you what I would do. I'm fortunate enough to be able to have a facility where I can store my automobiles indoors, most of my stuff. And it's very nice. It's safe. There's nothing that's stolen. Nothing that's taken from people's cars. We have fire alarms, cameras, ADT, the whole 9 yards. It's a very nice way to do it. And I'm very fortunate that I was able to do that. Now let me bring it on board here with a couple things that Auto Return has brought to the table for you guys to tell you how great it is. Yes, I'm putting in my talking for this company.
Excuse me, Ed, can I interrupt you for a minute? Because we are streaming live, when you walk away from your microphone, they're not picking this up on TV. If you can stand back by your seat as close as you can to the microphone.
This is our Vanna. Go, Vanna.
If you can sit by the microphone and have your assistant display the pictures for us would be great.
But here is this guy here, the state police refused to let him tow. Paul's towing. He was implicated in a stolen car ring. Turned state's evidence, so he wasn't prosecuted. That's the facility, that's the equipment that are towing your cars right now. That's disgusting. That's unheard of. It shouldn't even be happening. There's no level of professionalism there. It's horrifying. All right, Van, let's go next. Now we have, this here shows a storefront.
Can I ask you one question? You're showing us pictures of towing
facilities in Erie.
How, I'm just curious to know how you know that they are all AR towers. Is it just common
I'm able
knowledge?
to log into the AR system and pull up their vendor list.
Okay, good. Then
And
you do
they're
AR.
showing as current vendors, so they do list themselves.
Okay, I want to make sure before we go on with this.
Right. This is part of my other algorithm here. This is a satellite location to the vendor that's 100 yards away from me. They allowed them to move into a facility with just a fence around it in a residential area without the proper zoning. How would you like cars and stuff in your house next door to your church? Would you care for that? No, it doesn't meet the regulations. Unmanned, unattended facility. We can't have that. That's not part of the state regulations. But it's allowed, and it's going on right now. That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
This property here is a tower. His brother, a retired state trooper, he was able to have the ability to kind of bend the rules. This is his parents' house. This house is a registered geographic location. It's one of those dots on the map that says, hey, I can have a towing company here. A gate across the driveway. Unheard of. Where's the ADA regulations on these buildings? This is terrible. Our people should not be subject to towers like this. Absolutely ridiculous. We have one more facility. This is an auxiliary storage lot that is used as another geographic location. Beautiful facility, nice fence, wooden shed, no electricity, no security, and it is shown up on their map as a potential or as a usable spot to estimate calls from that. We can't have that. That doesn't meet the requirements what the state puts in place. These requirements, I've been doing this my entire life. And when we see people who will just diminish what we have worked hard at to bring stuff like this to the table, that's unheard of. It hurts me to see the levels brought down to this just to make this work. And these are numbers that they can change and play with. I don't care for that. We're going to move on to another situation. We're talking about salvage. Statute 75-7309, processing of non-repairable or salvage vehicles. Subsection E, police officers, authorized personnel, police officers and authorized personnel, their departments or any government agency or municipality shall not assess any except payment, consideration of any kind or portion of fees outlined in this chapter from any salver or person processing the fees. The law. Here's a screenshot, auto-return screenshot of what's going on. There's a couple things on here that's really interesting. I'd like to, number one, start with a dispatch time. 3/6/2014, 4:39 a.m. When does it get dispatched to me? At 12:16 p.m. We've got a lapse of almost 8 hours there in the timeline on this. There's an additional note here. It says agency. This tow was created by auto-return user. Please do not use agency notes. Further, instead, to the agency should be contacted directly by phone. 3/6/2014, 12:32 p.m. Jason Dow, municipality. System finally back online, but extremely slow. Show me the efficiency. Now, Let's move over here to administration fee. I charge $110 for salvage vehicles. That's part of the contract rate. I'll get into 3 parts of towing shortly here. But I was charged there's a $35 administration fee put on here, and automatically placed a $125 tow fee. That was generated by our friends at Auto Return. That can't happen. They're breaking the law. They need held accountable for that. As a tower in Pennsylvania, there's 3 parts of towing. We have a contract tower, which handles your state vehicles. We have the emergency tower, which is basically what we should be wrapping up here talking about. And number 3, the salvor. When you call me out as a salvor, you do not get the opportunity to dig into my wallet or the consumers of Pennsylvania. There is no value in auto return. No value at all.
Can I have that?
Absolutely.
I can't read it. I'm going blind.
There is no value in auto return to the consumer. I'm just appalled that it got this far, this fast. And I have to talk about, we talked about the corrosion, about when we started. In November, a gentleman from Auto Return walks into my business, hands me a letter from the commanding officer of the Pennsylvania State Police, says, Mr. Whiteman, you will cooperate to the fullest of your ability with this pilot program for 90 days. Well, guess what? 90 days is up, out of Erie. Sorry, let's go somewhere else. Don't put a gun to my head. Also, they told me, your neighbor signed, you will not tow another car unless you sign. I can't believe that that could be held like that. That's horrible. We got some health and safety issues. Their dispatch system. You're right. You talk about the telephone, you want to get an automated phone call, push 1, you get an automated voice that says, hi, can you take a call here? Push another number. Really? That doesn't tell me nothing. They're great dispatch, the marvelous, robust system. It comes in a text form. And now, there's a timing program put into this text form that comes on my phone. While I'm driving, I'm supposed to accept that call. As a commercial driver, I cannot do that. That's against the law. But they're requesting me to accept the call as I'm driving. As I approach a scene, there's another button that says that I'm supposed to hit a button that's on scene. Do you know what? When I'm approaching a scene, that's one of the most dangerous areas that you'll ever run into in your life. You've got slow traffic, you have personnel walking around, ambulances, you've got people that are confused and dazed that are just walking into traffic. You know, we can't have this. You know, Ron Perry told me, he says, when you're approaching, even like you're a quarter mile, half mile away, just hit the button. Well, we're still driving. I'm not worried about hitting a button. I'm not going to hit a button. If my times are very good, you've seen an average of 35 minutes. That's a shame. That's absolute insanity. I respond to most of my calls within 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the distance I have to travel in my area. And as a salver, I've got up to 30 miles of responsibility that I have to cover. If I don't, I'm arrested on a misdemeanor charge for not doing my duty to the state. This is not right. I don't believe that we can continue to do this. Is there changes that need? You know, the wheel is in place, like we've discussed. That wheel's rolling. We need to put a radial tire on it. We need to make that wheel run smooth. We need to have a centralized depository system for automobiles. There's a section that says that we must report all cars that sit on our property 15 days, when it hits the 15th day, within 24 hours, reported to the department. There's no procedure. How do we report it to the department? It's not laid out. It's not designed. This is ridiculous. Let's take this wheel. We can all sit down together. We're very smart and intelligent people, and we can work together and make a system that will work. As far as money goes, yes, we need to figure something out for our 911 systems. Why don't we do licensed towing companies? Why don't we, like most states, buy a towing license? That way we ain't worried about who paid this month, who paid that much. Here's your upfront fee. You want to tow in the state of Pennsylvania? Here's your number. Pay it or don't. These are the requirements you must meet. Play the game right. Get rid of the gypsies and the people that are just running around with one pickup truck with a sling in the back, or trying to put something on a trailer to you know, Ron Perry told me, he says, I don't care what I got to do to make this happen. I'm going to if I have to put a pickup truck with a trailer on it to tow a wrecked car off the street to make this happen for us, we're going to do that. This is the kind of crap that we've been put up with. We don't need to put up with it anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look, I don't know if I can follow that. Y'all heard me for a long time because the gentleman from Auto Return who, you know, I admire his business prowess, and he's a very smart man, and he's built a heck of a company. But I'm that rogue tower.
Yeah.
I'm that rogue tower, but let's define what that rogue tower is. That rogue tower that has stood up not for himself, but for all the people in my district, in my area. I have worked with these people all my life, and so has my father, since 1952. We deserve some respect. We're going to lay out some information today, and my presentation is going to shoot a whole lot of holes and a whole lot of things that they presented. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is the truth. This is the truth that came from these people beside you. These towers, not from me. Nobody can amass this information on their own. Nobody can come up with this information on their own and still have a business running. This wasn't because of me. It wasn't because of one rogue tower. It was because of a group of towers, 115 of them, and 78 fire companies. That's what this is about. Yes, we're a little smarter. We didn't come like they normally did so they can push people around. We came together, put a unified front on, and put a spokesman in place. Unfortunately, it's me. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to fight. If it puts an X on my back like Eddie just got on his and I never tow for the PSP again, then I guess I don't. I'll give it up since 1952. But we're here to fight and fight for a reason, because it's right for our businesses, it's right for our fire responders, and it's right for us. So if you flip to the beginning of this book, and I apologize for it being a book, but you're going to see some really revealing things. I know this is a little different venue than the way you've been doing it, but ladies and gentlemen, there's some stuff in here that'll boggle your mind and shake your toes. It's going to be fun. Let's start with, first, we are family-owned businesses. This short page in the beginning kind of sets out who we are. We are family-owned businesses. We are in your neighborhood. We are your constituents, and we've done a good job for a long, long time. The material that's in here is going to be very clear. It's going to address what the initially stated objective was, which was told to Mr. Representative Stevenson, which was to free the patrolman up to go back out on the street as soon as possible. That was the initial thing that was sold to us. Probably because they didn't want to hurt our feelings and say, we're really after you because we think you're a bunch of scumbags, like Major Hoke said in his dirt request. Instead, that's what they come out with. Well, it didn't take long for us to figure out that, and them to figure out, that the troopers don't get back on the street quicker. In fact, we have evidence later, we'll show you, it's slower. We are family-owned businesses, and yes, we are small businesses, but every one of us in this room as a businessman prides ourselves on our integrity. The reason our businesses are succeeding is because we work hard. There's a lot of businesses that don't. We are prepared to change every day. There's been references to change, and we do. That's why we still survive. But one thing we can't change is integrity by which we function our businesses. That's first. Second, as part of running your business, you must find a partner or partners in life that share that equal integrity so that you feel comfortable in what your family-owned businesses are and how you run them. Otherwise, you're putting everything that your family's worked for. I got third-generation towers over here, third-generation towers over here. They're putting everything they have at risk, or a large part of it, because in our business there isn't a whole bunch of cash. There's just enough to make it. So you need the towing and storage. You need to tow, you need the PSP, you need the municipality, you need the AAA. You need everything to make it work. Take away 20% of it, 30% of it. All of a sudden, you can't make a truck payment. All of a sudden, you lose your truck. All of a sudden, your kid can't go to the activities you usually go to because you're cutting back. That's the threat that we're under. But integrity is the key. This information is going to show, and they kind of wanted to gloss over it, but without a doubt, verifiably, and they absolutely knew about it, they use coercive tactics to try to force towers to join the program. Now, Ken's a heck of a guy from Eagle Towing in Erie, and I've talked to him several times. He's an honored vet. And sure, he didn't have a problem when he signed up. You know what? Because he willingly stepped forward and signed up. But show them that you object to that, and all of a sudden you're a rogue tower, you're a scumbag, you're whatever it is, you're a bad apple, you know, and there's no room for objection. Just step in line and comply. Well, we're going to show in this information that they use coercive tactics. As soon as you decide you're not going to participate, they'll do whatever they can, use whatever methods they can to convince you or force you to comply. Integrity, that means a lot. Now they switched their justification to bad tows. Well, it's bad towers. It's not about dispatch anymore, which we all heard from the beginning. It's about bad towers. Let me tell you what. and every organization, whether it's the towing industry or the state police or any, they're bad towers. But do we discipline them all because of the actions of a few? No. Let's talk about the actions of the state police. Since 1994 to 2012, over 150 state troopers have been arrested, anywhere from murder to rape to burglary to protection of child prostitution rings. Documented evidence. That does not make this gentleman right here a bad man. In fact, everybody sitting here is a good guy. They work hard for the living. There are some bad ones, but that doesn't make you take this man's gun off him or his taser and put it in the trunk for fear that he's going to act bad with it. No, you figure out how to get rid of the bad troopers, but you let him do his job and you let him protect the public health and safety. That's what we're dealing with with AR. It's a bad system and it decreases health and safety. Health and safety. There isn't a person with common sense in this room, especially those who are in law enforcement, that can honestly say that when a call originates from 911, goes to the state police barracks, the trooper's dispatched, the trooper makes an evaluation, calls the PCO on radio, the radio guy pulls down a program, types in the information with delays, as Eddie has seen, and as we'll talk about in a minute, sends it to California. California then picks a tower, that system is faster than the PCO getting a call, and or safer than the PCO getting a call, picking up the phone, dialing speed dial, and talking to one of my peers in this room, with the trooper a click away on a mic, asking them how, what, when, where. You have got to be unbelievably naive to believe that automated system is faster and you get better information of that than you do through a personal one-on-one communication. What happens when they don't get a hold of somebody? Well, he said, oh, well, we go to a live communication. Well, why'd you do that? I thought automated was the real thing. Because that part doesn't fail, and automated can. And the delays that they have in that system will show you later how that affects response time. They also said in the DIRT request to their inner barracks staff that we're unregulated industry. I disagree with that. The legislature disagreed with that. You guys passed the Towing and Storage Act in 2012. Now, we can all agree or disagree that there is or isn't enough information within that act or enough regulation. But you know what? It is regulated. And our suggestion is, if we do need regulation to relieve the PSP of the burdens that they have, then we as towers do not object to our legislature through a fair and just legislative process wherein we are participants and the state police are participants to sit down through a legislative process and augment that Towing and Storage Act. Now, by doing so, what will happen? That'll give, where he said the Office of Attorney General doesn't enforce it because it's so small, we'll augment it. If you want to, adopt some of the PSP regulations and other things, and now the Office of Attorney General will enforce it in according to what's in that statute. There's no reason we can't incorporate a lot of FR 6-2 into that, and or anything else the legislature, through a legislative process, deems necessary. Not somebody who's hired as a third party. I think Chairman Barrar asked this question. How can you not have the authority to control pricing, but yet at the same time hire someone to control pricing? Boy, that's a tough one. I didn't get that. You know, as I understood in law school, you can only pass on the rights. If you're the trunk of the tree, you can only pass on the rights that you have. It's hard to believe that they can abdicate that to a third party from California or any other third party to control rates. But this isn't about rates. This is going to be about health and safety in a few minutes. Everybody in this room invests in their family business. A lot of the state representatives sitting up there came from family businesses. In fact, Auto Return, Mr. Wicker, invests in his business. He is probably a really good guy. Ken sitting over there from Auto Return, I know he's a good guy. We all invest in our business. What is the role of government? Now, I'm just a farm boy coming from Clintonville, PA. I'm passionate about this. But let me tell you what we always thought the role of government was. The role of government was provide a stable environment so that the person or businesses could plan their life and go about their life. The stable environment gives us as businessmen the opportunity to invest and the opportunity to plan for the future. Without that stability, we will not invest. We'll be worried. We'll put our money under the mattress. Now, what does that mean for health and safety? You know, in the middle of winter, and Pennsylvania is not San Diego, California. We do have storms and snow, just like they had in Baltimore. But what does that mean? If we don't invest, you don't have the equipment. You don't have the surplus response equipment that has been paid for by the towers to utilize in service of the state of Pennsylvania. We have to have a stable environment by which to invest. We as towers, and we'll tell you why in a few minutes, we can't do business with auto return. Lowering standards is 1, trust and credibility is 2, and regulation without representation is 3. And there's a dozen other ones because everybody here has their own reasons. But I tell you what, when you talk to them, those are a lot of the real ones, okay? So, small businesses can rely upon our legislature, the role of government, to provide a stable environment so that we can go forward. Might not like it. Didn't say I would. Some guys in here would like it, some guys wouldn't. But you know what? We could trust it. Credibility, once again, is key. We'll show you in a few minutes why we have none with the company that we're talking about today. Let's just give one thought to a plausible scenario on how to handle this. Just keep this in mind, because everybody's saying, well, how do we fix this? Augment the Towing and Storage Act if you deem it's necessary through the legislative process and involve the policyholders and the participants in that legislative process. So we have the seat at the table and we can come up with a regional logical regulations through representation, 1. 2, use the insurance and quality officers that are currently out in the marketplace for the salvers and inspecting all your inspection stations. They already checked me for wreckers and fence for salver. They already checked my garages and service stations, of which most of these people are automotive related, either repairing, so the guys are already at the facility. He's already there. Oh, there might be a little cost, but safety is going to mean a lot here. There's a little cost for safety. Safety's first. But we can use them to do that. So now the PSP don't have to inspect cars. We've augmented the Health and Safety, or the Towing and Storage Act, and now the Office of Attorney General is responsible for the enforcement of that. Just like today, they think that the PCOs won't be bothered. Let's talk about what happens, and we'll get into one of those in a minute. Somebody's towed, PSP dispatches a car, it's dispatched, and the trooper's there. The person has no idea how they're supposed to call or whom. So what do? They call the barracks. We'll get into that. They'll call the barracks, and the PCO will do just what they did in this example. They'll give them the number to auto return to call and complain now, or they can give the number to the Attorney General's office. No difference there, right? The one agency handles the complete issue relevant to enforcement, or the other agency handles a complete issue relevant to enforcement. Seems like the state police are still getting what they want. Now let's go to the dispatch side. Let's turn over to 911. He talks about how, Mr. Wicker talked about how in the 911 side, well, you know, it's obsolete, it's this, it's that. Well, let me tell you what, ladies and gentlemen. They dispatch the ambulances to your house. They dispatch the fire trucks to your house or to the schools. They dispatch more wreckers than the PSP ever do in the state of Pennsylvania. And they dispatch the police all over Pennsylvania. I have a hard time believing, and they do a fine job, and they have control or connection with all the emergency assets within the county. I have a hard time believing that they're not capable of dispatching 200,000 or 240,000 PSP tow calls in the state of Pennsylvania. Is there an incremental cost? According to our guys that we talked to the 911s, they said we can easily handle it. Maybe there's an incremental cost, but safety matters. So what do we get for that? We get a live dispatch that I can actually talk to somebody that comes quicker, which we'll get into that, so we can save lives on the road. People die in seconds on the road, not in minutes. That's my opening statement. I'm sorry it was long, but this really means a lot to us. Let's go to section 1. We talked about the changing rationale. You can see the documentation from the PSP there relevant to the changing rationale. Importantly, we sent a statement to them very early on, which Dick Stevenson and other reps got. We got the same boilerplate response back. We're going to do this. It's the best thing. It's the same thing they just regurgitate. They never paid a single attention to what we said, just like they never cared what the PTA or the Pennsylvania Towing Association had to say. You can look through number 2. It talks about response time, but number 3 is interesting. It's a dirt request, we call it. And you know what? It's unfair to Mr. Hoke because it was an inter-office thing, and I understand that. But if you're going to put that out there, people are going to look at it if we can get a hold of it. And he's a fine man, and there's no disrespect to that gentleman. But pay attention to what it says within that thing, because this is going to come up later. And this will be one thing that I think will affect every state representative and every state trooper in the room, because we all have family, we all have loved ones. And in that thing, it says, he asks for examples of such intentional conduct could include overcharging, charging for services would not render, duplicate billing, tow company, assisting another, exorbitant storage fees, blah, blah, blah. And it gets down to employing of felons, just to name a few. We'll get into that, but remember that, because you're going to be surprised. Let's go to section 2. Tow responders. You know, you can't define a program by any one part. You have to define a program by the whole, right? So what's the program supposed to do? Well, it's not my fault the PCO didn't type in enough information. Well, it's not my fault the trooper didn't tell him enough and the PCO didn't type it in. That's why you went the wrong way. It's not my fault that the internet lines were slow. Look, we're not here to talk about that. We're talk about a system. If you have internet slow over here, PCO doesn't like to type, doesn't type as much, doesn't get it in, that's all part of the system. The other part of the system is convincing the Pennsylvania towers that they should willingly participate in a program. Now, if they aren't able to convince the towers to participate in that program, the system failed, because we're an integral part of the program. So the phone line goes down, it's unreliable, this is unreliable, so on and so forth. Down the line, you got to put it all together. And if every one of those is off sooner or later, one time or another, the system starts to fall apart. They can talk what they want. This is towing and recovery in the state of Pennsylvania, not municipal towing in San Diego, where you're talking about a lot of traffic violations and stuff like that. This is accident recovery. Most of our towing is that in Pennsylvania. It requires response times. There are 115 tow companies that signed this petition, most of which are prime towers that were former PSP towers that met all the criteria. Most of them towed for a long time. There are 74 fire departments that signed with concerns, and there are lots of complaints from the fire departments in here. That in and of itself would tell me that the system failed. You'll see representatives, most of those people are listed here in accordance with their counties and districts. Let's go back to credibility. I won't do business with a company that I don't trust. It's been a secure business philosophy for my company for years. The problem they have is they've lost the credibility with the towers on these 115 towers in this room, and it's spreading across the state. Not the state police, but Auto Return has. They're surrogate. See, as Ken said, so long as you're willing to go along, you're a good guy. But as soon as you disagree or have questions, well, then you're a rogue tower, you're a bad guy, you're a misinformation person. Hey, you give me a contract, I don't like what's in it, I'm going to tell people about it.
Can I ask you I know you want to dispute some of the comments. I would like to try to, I guess, because we are limited on time, try to stick to the comments that were made by Auto Return or State Police and
Sure.
give us your reasons why you feel their comments weren't accurate. Okay?
Okay, anybody from the Warren County Tow here? Raise your hand, guys. We had a tow meeting in Landers Fire Hall, Warren County. And in that meeting, the state police invited themselves to come, which was fine. Okay, within that meeting, Lieutenant Klein, who's a lieutenant at the Erie Barracks, Trooper Eric Maskelli, who has been integral in part of the implementation team, was there to present their side from Harrisburg, and Corporal Rick Elkson, and I apologize if I destroyed his name, from the Warren Barracks. We made our presentation, and they come in about partway through, and I have to say they're all respectful when they're there. They're good men. And they come in, and they heard us talking about the integrity and the lies and deceits that are used by Auto Return to try to coerce towers to join. Trooper Maskelli, fortunately for him, unfortunately for him, didn't come in until after we'd already talked about the real details, and now we were just talking about, so he didn't hear what the towers actually had to say at that point. In his presentation, Trooper Maskelli said, well, we've heard rumor of that is just hearsay. Well, we said, time out, let's talk to the towers. How many of you guys have been lied to, right? And how many of you people have been told that your neighbor signed, the other neighbor signed? Almost every tower in the room would say, I was told that he signed, and if I didn't sign it, he was going to get all my business. He would go to that guy and say, I was told he signed, back and forth, and you're going to be out of business if you don't sign up. So that was direct evidence to Trooper Maskelly from witnesses of what actually happened to them, but it gets better than that. Steve Barnett, who was from Erie, had a tape recording from earlier that day, a voicemail from Ron Perry, that did exactly that. Threatened him, threatened his business, as we call threats, but used lying tactics because the guys beside him, he said signed up, said we never signed up, and he was talking to those guys. Lieutenant Klein listened to that voicemail at our request. We requested that this man, who we think we greatly respect, report that to superiors in Harrisburg. Okay? It was reported to Lieutenant Wendt in Harrisburg, according to Lieutenant Klein, and obviously Trooper Mascali, who's part of the information team, heard it and heard Lieutenant Klein talking about it. I don't know if you heard it, but you heard Lieutenant Klein talking about it. In follow-up conversation with Lieutenant Klein, we asked him, did you hear anything back on? Did you report? He said, yes, I did. They said to get back to me. I said, have they? He said, no, they never have. No one ever contacted a single tower to ask if those things actually occurred. Interestingly, at the PTA meeting a month later, Lieutenant Wendt, Trooper Mascali sat there while Mr. Wicker from Auto Return stood up there and denied that ever happened and said that is just like he sat here and said, one tower who signed, not wanting to tell the other one he didn't. Well, guess what? Nobody in Warren County signed, right? So that can't be the case. But Lieutenant Wendt and Trooper Mascali sat there and never said a word. Wow, he lied to the Pennsylvania Towing Association. Now, he may not have lied. He might not have believed it. But that is exactly what happened. Maybe they never said anything to him from the PSP, and they didn't want to talk about it. Maybe he didn't lie. But that's exactly what happened, and that's what everybody in Warren County, so there's a petition here that says that. If you flip through the rest of them, there's numerous of them. Hayden's Garage, they were told towers had signed up that hadn't. Tom Doyle from Venango was, Mr. Perry told him he was a Maryland County State Police trooper, and he wasn't. He was a municipal, but I don't know what that mattered, but he seemed to think that was important. Several towers have been told that, and the information is in here. Credibility is important. Is it reasonable to ask Pennsylvania companies to willingly sign up and turn over their third-generation family businesses to a company that's lost your trust? I submit to you the answer to that's no. That's one of the reasons, not just the other ones, why we don't want to participate, but that's a credibility issue. This is interesting. Eddie brought up a point earlier. Credibility is in making sure the system works. Eddie brought up a point where Ron Perry told him to punch in while he's arriving on a scene before he gets there. Unsafe. What does that do? That makes the numbers look good, so when Auto Return turns them over to the Pennsylvania State Police, the response times are better because they got to. That's why do you think their numbers keep getting better in every community? Because they teach the towers to cheat. And don't forget, according to Corporal or Lieutenant Major Hogue, we're already cheaters. There's an email attached in here. This comes from the Baltimore Towing Association, was drafted by Ron Perry, and there he also reports response times to the Pennsylvania or to Baltimore County. I'll read it. It says, I've been reviewing daily reports and I've noticed that many companies are late by seconds. Please request that your drivers mark themselves on site when they are within view of the scene. Also, if the driver arrives at the location specified by ARIES, which is their dispatch program, and the officer or vehicle is not in sight, have them mark themselves on site prior to making inquiries about the location or continuing to search the surrounding areas. On the face of it, that sounds good, like you're telling the towers we're out looking out for you. But the reality is that falsifies response times that these folks in Harrisburg are supposed to rely upon to justify the existence of this program. He told Eddie to do the same thing while driving to a scene. Seems to be a common tactic. It's easy to increase response time if you tell the towers it's okay to cheat and you don't care if you supervise them because it makes your numbers look good. It's kind of self-serving. Let's talk about lowering standards because they do get low. Lieutenant Colonel Bivens sat here and he said, the only time that a tower can be turned on is when they meet compliance with the standards. They can sign up, but they can't be turned on. Well, that might be what the state police believe is happening, but the reality is far, far, far from that. We have some really good examples. Again, credibility. You held us to the standard all these years, and now there's no standard? What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to sign up with these guys? There is that statement as testified by Shane Staley. Lieutenant Well said they already dropped the requirement for a wrecker on a scene for light-duty tow. Why do you think that was there? Because a tilt bed is not a recovery vehicle. A wrecker is a recovery vehicle. Chevron, which is the world's largest producer of tilt beds, which the materials enclosed, says specifically that a tilt bed is not for recovery. But you only need a recovery tilt. You only need a tilt bed under the new state police rules because they need to get this program to work. They don't care about health and safety. Second International Towing Institute says the same thing. It says tilt beds are not for recovery. But so long as we want the program to work, we don't care. Now tell me, is it just as safe because it's a pilot program than before? No, it's unsafe. That's why you put the rules in the first place. Venango County. Yes, my friends in this room from Venango County are rogue, crazy towers. That's what they would have you believe. To be honest with you, we're just Americans, small businessmen that don't like to be lied to, forced, or disrespected. So let's talk about what happened there. They tried to turn Venango County on. There's a statement in here to that effect. We'll get past the towing stuff. I call this might makes right. Who cares about health and safety? They wanted to turn Venango County on because that's what they do. On March 10th, which was Monday, they intended on turning on Venango County. To do so, they approached 2 or 3 really good families. They approached B&M Towing, which are good people. They approached Snyder Brothers, which are good people. And they approached Burt's Auto Repair, which is good people. I've known 2 of those people all my life. They went to a tow meeting the Friday before with us because they weren't sure what this is about. When they came to the tow meeting with us, they said, you know what? We're going to join you guys instead of those guys. So they signed up with us, but they were all ready to start on Monday to be AR towers. They were approved AR towers for Monday morning. They were going to kick that program off Monday morning, and this was Friday night. They were the towers to run the program. No doubt about it. So when they joined us, we said, hey, we'll help you join the PSP the regular way, right? I mean, obviously you meet the criteria, otherwise you wouldn't be able to tow. Well, Tom Doyle from Venango County Towing, he's more of the logistics guy when it comes to that. He met with them. He met with Snyder Brothers, and guess what? He had only a tilt bed, no wrecker. Well, we knew that was coming. But second, he didn't meet the insurance requirements. He no way near had the insurance, and when he found out when we were working with him, it cost him $2,400 to add the insurance, but he didn't have them. But he was going to tow on Monday morning. He did not have a pound. Those are the only 3 I mean, right off the bat, I thought Lieutenant Colonel Bivens sat here and told the state representatives that nobody could turn on and tow until they met the requirements. I have no doubt Lieutenant Colonel Bivens believes that. But I know for sure that AR is not honoring that, and nobody's watching them. What do you think will happen after the program gets started? If they don't take care of business now under the pilot program, do you really think they will later? Burt's Auto didn't meet the insurance requirements, didn't have a pound, only had a twin line wrecker. B&M didn't meet the insurance requirements and didn't have a pound. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, that's bad for health and safety. Mercer County, wait till you see this one. Now I'm a little confused in some parts, but in Mercer County, they turned on half the county. They turned it on with 2 towers. They turned it on with Lowry's Towing in Mercer County and with Brown's Towing in Mercer County with assistance of Watson's over in Ohio. The only one before that was a PSP tower, well, I guess Watson was, they say, in Ohio, and Lowry's, but Brown's was not. Brown's towed for auction sites. He never qualified to be a PSP tower or never wanted to. So therefore, he wasn't a pre-existing PSP-approved tower that just had to sign on the line. This wasn't the PSP screw-up. PSP had no responsibility for this. It was auto-return. How many of the state representatives here have kids? I do. How many people in this room have kids? Right? All right. What's the nearest and dearest thing to you in your life? The health and safety of your kids. It is for me. I'd give up my life for them. Don't forget, remember we made mention? The dirt request from Major Hoke? It said employing felons, just to name a few. Brown Towing, Joe Brown's a heck of a guy. I like him a lot. His brother, not so good. His brother is one of his primary towers. His brother's on Megan's list tier 3. His brother goes out and tows for PSP. The PSP have reported that to their barracks. They're told to stand down and shut up. Here's what he's convicted of, ladies and gentlemen, kids. What he pled to, I'm sorry. Guilty plea, disorderly conduct, hazarded physical offense. Guilty plea, aggravated assault, forcible compulsion, felony 2. Guilty plea, criminal trespass, structure. How about your kid going to college at Edinburgh, Westminster, Teal, Slippery Rock, or just traveling to see a friend at 1 o'clock at night and they break down or their tire goes flat, or they're in a meeting they need towed, and this man's the person that picks up your daughter. Thank you, auto return. I don't think I can be more clear than that. Watson's, whether it was a PSP's fault or not, the guy is from Ohio, heavy duty, Hubbard, Ohio. The problem with that is, A, he only has one heavy, not 2. You have to have 2 to be on the PSP list. Number 2, you have to have a Pennsylvania license, sales tax license. I don't speak to that, but I almost guarantee you he doesn't. His vehicles are not registered with the Department of Transportation. As Lieutenant Colonel Bivens said, they all obviously would be. The next one.
Kurt, can I ask you a question? Are you going to be able to wrap up in about 2-3 minutes?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
All right, so credibility. Whip out that picture real quick of the tower that they signed and just show that. This picture right here shows a tower signed by AR that was never a PSP tower before. Guess what? His pound is the alley, and his tilt bed is obsolete, doesn't meet GVW, it does not have DOT, PUC, or anything on the truck, but they are a prime AR tower. In your package materials, this is another prime AR tower called Always Towing. Look at the picture. The guy has an Ohio PUOC number on it with Ohio plates, but he's towing on Route 28 so that he can put it to the towers down there. It keeps getting better. Dispatch failure, here's the deal. You have to see this one. This system takes longer, no doubt, no way about it. We received anonymously in the mail from somebody from a police barracks 30 screen prints, supposedly consecutive, from Auto Return's dispatch program. We ran averages on them. My IT guy did. I have provided them to a necessary party who is verified and would verify at any time the actual numbers. I no longer have the information. The information we were sent said that their average response time was 15 to 20 minutes. When we did number crunching, their average response time on scene was 50 minutes and 22 seconds. Here's the way it breaks down, and this is why the system of automation isn't as good as a live tow. The trooper radios in. We talked to a couple troopers. They said, man, it takes me about 2 minutes when I'm on scene. So there's 2 minutes. The PCOs that we talked to and the PCOs that called anonymously, which 2 of them did, said that it takes them about a minute to dispatch a tow responder. That's 3 minutes. I took the high side of the information we got. They said 15 to 20, which the person has the documentation to review. It says it on there. I used 20 minutes. Response time on scene from trooper to the time a tow truck arrives in this area, 23 minutes. Here's the AR system run by their averages. Trooper said it takes no more than a minute longer. He said it really isn't much because he doesn't have to fill out a lot of information. He said later that may change, but not now. Now, obviously, this PCO was disgruntled, and or people that sent us this information was, and they said that by the time they pull the program down with the slowness, and they got to fill it out well as they can, because otherwise the guy gets lost and directions are bad, take about 7 minutes. Those you can argue, Mr. Wicker, but here's what you can't argue about from that. When the PCO presses dispatch request, it took 3 minutes and 10 seconds from the time he pressed, not 1 second or 1/2 second like you said, according to these reports, it took 3 minutes and 10 seconds from the time he pressed request to the time AR received that request. It took them 3 minutes and 48 seconds from there for that tow company, whoever they picked, to respond to that. That's 7 minutes, give or take 2 seconds. Then we did the calculations on from that point, from the time the PCO, they said 20 minutes for the PCO. We took the average arrive time after the time that they received the dispatch. It was 33 minutes, 24 seconds, right from their documents. That's 50 minutes and 22 seconds versus 23 minutes. Now here's where this adds all up real quick. Let's say everything was equal. Well, let's just look at the difference. That's a difference of 27 minutes. That response time doubled with a trooper on scene. That's not good. Fire companies say the same thing, so do towers and so do the troopers in the field. We just don't want to talk to them because they know what's really happening. Even if you take out any discrepancy between the trooper in the field and the PCO taking longer, if you just use the additional time it takes for them to administer it in the response times, it was 20 minutes and 22 seconds longer. On a 30-call average, they're talking hundreds. Add that up times hundreds and see what your liability is on the interstate. Here's the real kicker. In the notes, there were 22 requests for ETA by the PCOs. Let's talk about how it works now. PCO picks up the phone, knows who he's calling, you say you're going, how long will it take you to be there? I'll be there in 15:20. Thanks, boom. Trooper on scene to be there 15:20. Here's the way it works now. The system's defaulted to 30 minutes. Who knows? Why do you think the trooper's called 22 times? So if he wants an ETA, he calls the PCO turns around and sends it to California. California calls a tower who's driving a commercial vehicle down the road and asks for a response time. He then sends it back to PCO, the trooper. In these 30 responses, they asked for ETAs 22 times. 9 times they failed to respond. There's a 15-minute shutdown, 6 redispatches, and 7 no responses. There's an email from Ron Perry sent out to the towers that confirms this, and it says, we realize it's frustrating when our customer service representatives call to inquire about your ETA. This is usually done at the request of the PASP who are waiting on the scene. Please be patient with our representatives as they are trying to perform their duties as required. Yeah, they're calling and asking for ETAs all the time. Why is that? Because the trooper's used to waiting 15 to 20 minutes and not 40. That's why he's calling for it. Health and safety. For that issue and that reason alone, this program has absolutely failed. If it takes long to respond on the interstate, then shame on them. The administrative efficiencies can be handled by our legislature through augmentation of the Towing Act and through having, if the PSP don't want to enforce it, having the people we talked about through inspection of towing stations and service stations come, and by pushing this issue through, again, the Towing and Storage Act, and they're done. They don't have any issues.
Kurt, can we get out the questions from the legislators?
I apologize for that, but I want you to hear what these guys have told me for the last 8 months, 6 months.
I can tell this is an issue you're very passionate about, so we appreciate your passion here. Representative Stevenson for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Kurt, for making the trip with all of your colleagues today. Appreciate it. Appreciate your testimony. I'm going to get right to the bottom line. We've heard a lot of testimony today. Is it auto return itself that you don't want to work with, or is it the system that they're proposing that you don't like? And in addition to that, if that's not the system you like, what is the system you would like to see in place in Pennsylvania? In terms of the dispatch, I'm not talking about the legislative changes to the act or any of that sort of thing, but just a system that would work. We've heard concerns from the state police about 911 not being able to do it because of the administrative work that the state police now does in terms of regulating the towers and so forth. So taking all that into account, how do you see this issue being resolved? What's your suggestion?
Well, first, everybody that's opposing this system, of which are a lot of good towers, the questions are why, and as the Pennsylvania Towing Association said, those responses vary, but there are several very clear ones. The first is, we don't want to do business with a company we don't trust. They burnt the bridge, And how do you do business with that now, because you can't trust them to be honest with you? Second, the system is not conducive to health and safety. As Representative Costa said, I do Interstate 80. You got to get me real live dispatch, even on the country roads. It's down by the creek. It's across from the old mill. It's here, there. You don't get that from auto return. Eddie says he calls the barracks every time he goes on the tow for the state police because the information isn't good, right?
Correct. Every time.
Every time.
I call the barracks, find out exactly what equipment I need, so I do not leave our emergency personnel, our troopers out there in any more danger. And it's horrifying being on a highway.
So first, the AR company to us, to me, and to most of the people here is untrustworthy, and you should see the first contract that backs that up. Second, the system we believe is flawed. You can't replace a verbal dispatch with real live communication with an automated system and say it's better or safer. You really can't. And how do you know which one's the one that's going to get somebody killed? Well, averages are, I don't deal in averages. My kids travel that road. So those are two compelling reasons for the towers. What do we need? We need live dispatch. And we need to have security in our future through regulation, through representation if necessary, versus having somebody from California doing things that the state police never could do or never would do. So how do we do that? We rely upon you, obviously, but our concepts are simple, and we're simple folks. Our concepts are we already have the vehicle by which to drive, which is towing and storage act. Take a look at it. Get with us, get with the PSP, and decide what we need to do to apply additional regulations, if any, to that act, number one. Put them in there. That leaves it then up to the Office of Attorney General for enforcement. PSP can just refer that to Office of Attorney General if they have any questions. Number three, we can use the other company I talked about, the other people to inspect the vehicles. And we can use 911 to dispatch, which is better anyhow. So you got 911 dispatch, and you got the Towing and Storage Act regulating, and you got Office of Attorney General forcing, and you got the guys, assurance of quality, inspecting your cars and your vehicles. And we've solved this in state with our resources rather than send our money out of state. I think that's a better scenario, and we have live dispatch. You know, one of the things that they said, Dick, which is a real kick, auto return was supposed to be the person who handled this. This is a real issue. They said auto return, and they said it's supposed to be the intermediary between the tower and the person who got towed. Kathy Newquist, out of the Katanning Barracks area, is a very nice lady. I talked to her. Now, they'll tell you they never had a complaint. Not true. Kathy Newquist, the information's in here under failed dispatch. But what happened to her, and it's not the fact that the charges were wrong, it's the whole process. A non-PSP new AR tower towed that lady, right? Towed her son 2 hours from where she is. She was told the bill was $300, $350, $400, and then became $450. At the end of the day, the bill was right, probably, or pretty close. But the kick in the pants was this. The lady didn't have, as in your office, Major said, well, $35 is a nominal fee. She didn't have a spare $35. When she tried to pay for her son's car, her son was driving the first time, her debit card failed. She's a teacher's aide. She doesn't make $200,000 like some people in this room, okay? So what happened? She called the state police barracks for help. Whoa, she didn't call auto return. They're always going to call the state police. They're always going to handle it regardless of what they do. They gave them the phone number for auto return. She called auto return. Now, this is where it's supposed to be Pandora. The great auto return is going to handle all these problems, make everything go away. Hardly the case with this poor lady. She was very clear in what she said. Auto return told her at the desk, we are only a dispatch company. We do not fix or set rates, and we cannot help you get your car. Sorry. So what did she do? She called back to the state police barracks. The PCO, whoever that was, forwarded it to the supervisor, and the supervisor tried 2 or 3 times. His response to her was, I've never worked with this tower before, I can't help you. She had to leave work, drive 2 hours, put money in her son's card because he would no longer accept the debit card so he could go get cash and pay that guy. Her point wasn't about a lot of it, was nobody would take responsibility. I thought that's what auto return was supposed to do. Obviously, it didn't work. So, Dick, we got to avoid that.
Right. I appreciate your answer and your direction. Thank you.
Representative Barbin for a question. Kurt, if I can ask you that we have one more testifier.
Yep.
And if you can speed your answers up, would be greatly
quick.
appreciated. Thank you.
This is a question for Mr. Whiteman. I think seeing your photos, I just want to confirm that this is your testimony. You are a vendor for AR.
Yes.
Okay. And in AR's computer-generated package of administration, if somebody were to come in tomorrow and build a building beside you that was 10 feet closer to whatever your area is, you would be eliminated from receiving that work.
Well, actually, I have been eliminated from majority of work.
That's first question. Okay, I just wanted to get very clear. That's what happens with this system. Okay, and the next system is this system as a vendor, does it allow for any rotation of the people close in your area?
No.
Okay, then I just have a quick comment, which is no matter what the testimony has come out really clearly today is, it isn't a question whether this was good or bad. The state police are doing an incredible job for drug problems that we have in the state. They shouldn't be administering the problem. The only question that's coming up to us is whether this particular group out of California, with their centralized administration approach and their computer response as opposed to a 911 response, a county 911 would know who the people are, and whether we should have licensing or not. We probably should have licensing. But from the testimony, the state police are to enforce our violent laws, not to administer our tow laws. And the only question that is whether we can do better than the current system, because it's a pilot project. It's not a good system if you get a computer to tell you something based on garbage in that the guy who doesn't have as good a program of recovering gets the call because they put up a building to beat the GPS system. That's garbage in. And it doesn't make sense for consumers to allow people to have only one person responding instead having four, because by four people in an area responding, it keeps the price of that tow lower. So no matter what it is or how we got here, this is a bad system. And we need to go back and look at getting a license for towers, and we need to get to a program where state police doesn't have to do this. We got 911 centers in every county in Pennsylvania. We shouldn't be sending the money to California.
Sir, can I make a comment on that? My name is John Malinsky. I represent Butler County. We have one of the first 911 systems in PA. They dispatch for 13 police departments, different variations. And I can tell you, as a fact and as a tower, we do not have the problem that PSP does. And I don't understand where their problem's at, and it's all different. Some are a rotation, it's nearest available, but it's all worked out. And our 911 system has no problem doing it. Our average response time for Butler Township is 20 minutes. That's the longest we're allowed, and we're there. And what we get is a phone call saying, hey, okay, this is what we need. I send the trucks out. And that's it, we're done. I don't have, I don't have to go, back and talk to somebody on a radio. I have to go back and talk to somebody on a radio anywhere, or not a radio, on a voice message. And this is the way we've been doing it for years, and we have no problems. What is the problem now?
Our next testifier was supposed to be the gentleman from Beaver County Emergency Services. He could not make it today, but actually, and everyone has in their packet, if you look in your packet from Wesley Hill, director, his testimony is, of course, exactly what you said, verifies what you're saying, that the 911 emergency calls in Beaver County are handled and dispatched through the 911 system. So the capability is truly there, and I think it's something right now this committee is currently in the middle of rewriting the 911 emergency telephone laws at this time. And this may be an area that we could look at doing the dispatching, and talking to our 911 centers around the state to make sure that they have that capability. I would assume it's pretty much a software program.
I talked to Steve Bricehouse, which is the head of our 911 system up there. He said the program is roughly $1,000. He said it's pennies on a dollar to do the dispatching, which he didn't even know if he really needed an extra dispatcher because the amount of dispatching they do for so many police departments, fire departments, and ambulances. So basically, they're telling you they can do it.
And pretty much everyone who is paying, has a telephone or a cell phone, is paying already for dispatch service.
Correct.
Now we will charge them twice for the dispatch service through 911, and then if they're involved in an accident, they would have to pay a $35 additional fee on top of the $20 to $1.25 that they currently pay in Pennsylvania. So of course we would like to rectify that. I think the system is very unfair to the consumer in Pennsylvania.
Most of our township, I live in Center Township, we're already paying a fire tax to pay for this kind of stuff.
Yep. Other questions from the members? Representative Marshall, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the testimony that we've heard today from all sides, and as a volunteer firefighter myself, I know what it's like to be out on the street, typically at night, oftentimes when it's snowing, and even in the best conditions, we have motorists that fail to comply with our signals and drive onto a scene at a rate of speed that is uncontrollable. Any minute that we spend on the highway is precious. There are lives involved in this. And, I think that it's important to note your testimony in reducing the amount of time out there at the scene is critical, and that the costs involved is the cost of government is something that is hard to wrap your hands around, but the cost of public safety, that's our prime concern, public safety in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And, we really have to work on the efficiency, and maybe we need broadband radio, or maybe we need to consolidate some services, but we certainly rely on the Kens and the Bills and the Marys and everyone that's involved in our first responders, that we know they're our friends, they're our neighbors. We trust them, whether they're towers or EMTs or firefighters, and certainly I think that we need to keep these jobs in Pennsylvania if we can. That's certainly our goal. And to have the citizens of Pennsylvania need to be involved in this, and I'm glad that you brought so many from Western Pennsylvania up here today. I appreciate that. I was looking forward to some questions to Wes Hill, our director of Beaver County, but again, we do have his testimony, and I thank all that have testified here today, and I thank the chairman for having this committee.
Great. Thank you. Kurt, this book that you and I want to draw some attention to it to the other members that you've given us is incredible. I wish I would have had it for days to look through it, but there's also there's a section in here that was provided by a member of the Maryland legislature, basically outlining numerous of concerns, exactly what we're getting here today. And I'm not sure how long has this been taking place not in the entire state of Maryland. I understand it's just
Maryland
Baltimore County.
Yep. The county, Baltimore County.
Okay.
And that was given to Dick Stevenson, a Representative Stevenson, by someone with the Baltimore legislature, and we received it in a meeting with the major at Dick's office. And in review, I enclosed that within there and highlighted the points, as you said, Representative, that the chairman is those are the same things we're talking about and the same things they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's numerous concerns here about the that this has led to 5 to 7 minute longer response sides, that the tow responders are not allowed to call police officers or the barracks. Instead, they must call California, that there's missing information, is not, when the tower is dispatched, that there is missed information because the 911 or the communications officer has to type in the data field to tell you exactly the details of the accidents, which I can imagine could be quite lengthy. I'm a typer like this, so it would take me a week to do the proper. Is there just real quick? I guess. Well, I guess the members will all take a look at this if they can. And any other? Who else had a question? I think somebody just contacted Representative Costa.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a comment. When I first came into this meeting this morning and reading and following the whole process along the way, my biggest concern were for the troopers that were out there responding, the public safety people, the first responders, your tow people that are responding to these scenes, because I know how deadly they can be. They can turn instantly, and that was my biggest concern. I have many other concerns after this hearing today, and I trust, especially building a tow truck, to be a tow driver, to get a contract. I mean, I trust that in the city of Pittsburgh, when I was a chief, if I had an applicant or a probation candidate or a probationary officer, and I found out that they misled me like that, and I believe the state police is the same way, they'd be gone. This is a pilot program. They're on probation. I trust that state police will look into these, whether it be tapes or if you guys can give them the books, the allegations, and look into these allegations on both sides, verify stories on both sides, and then make the judgment there if they continue to go down the road as far as looking for a privatization of this versus a 911 center. So, again, I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I thank you extremely for this very informative meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. There was one gentleman that was named in your panel sitting next to you who switched seats. You would like to make a comment?
Yes, I would. My name is David Norris. I'm 31 years old. I am a third-generation tower in D&D Auto Salvage Towing and Recovery. I have been involved in this industry my entire life, and many of these people in this room, since I was a child and when I came up through building the business, have helped me, many mentors in this room. And one thing that I'm not sure was made clear today, there is a large difference between what is referred to as a tow operator and a towing and recovery operator. And basically what I have witnessed so far with this program, there are companies that may have been around our area that were tow companies. I have tow operators that I would not send on a recovery job. They merely do hook and tow private calls. There is a big difference in training, equipment, everything, and there are a lot of people in our area that have chosen to participate in this program that may be purchasing the equipment to meet the standards, even though, as Kurt brought to our attention, is not the case. Even if they did represent the standards in that manner, these people do not have the background and experience. You have the best towing and recovery operators in this room in that part of the state who are not willing to participate in this program. So what you have is a poor form of a mockery of our businesses that are trying to represent us. And again, we have always had a good working relationship with the police departments, and I don't mean any disrespect, but if you took the current troopers out of place and replaced them with state constables, not that there is anything the matter with them, but the state troopers are held to a higher standard. They require more training. They require more testing to perform their duties. Although these people may represent them, you're not going to get the same standard and performance that you're going to get out of the people that are in this room. We are the ones that took initiative and made the investments originally on our own decision to participate in towing for the state police. We are the ones before you that made that investment and sacrifice in our lives. I've left my children's birthday parties. I have 4 children. I have a beautiful wife. I have to completely revolve my life around this industry. And at a prior meeting, I was told by the state police, well, you chose that. And I said, you're exactly right. I did choose to do that. I chose to be a tow operator. But I feel that we deserve to be respected more than that for the sacrifices we've made in our lives and for, with our families to do this, because people don't understand. On an emergency scene, we are the only agency there that is not government funded. It's not like the fire department where we're able to go back and volunteers come and clean the trucks and replace all the equipment. This is all ourselves and our families and our sacrifice and our money. And that's why this is so important to us, and that's why many of these gentlemen took the day off today to be out here. It was not easy for any of us to be here, but this is how important it is to us, and this is how important it is to the general safety of the public and the state of Pennsylvania.
I agree with you. And you're not guaranteed to get paid for the tow either.
Correct.
So how many of them, and you don't have to answer the question, but how many times do you tow and the person never comes back to reclaim their car?
Absolutely.
And our new law gives them access to the car to take their personal vehicles, but doesn't require them to pay you for the service that you provided to the customer and the Commonwealth. So believe me, we understand fully. There's a couple other questioners. Chairman Sonato.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to hear from Mark McConnell. Mark, would you come up and just
Yeah.
Why don't you just give us just some briefing of what's happening in Lawrence County and how it's operating?
Hello, my name is Mark McConnell. I'm from Lawrence County. We have 7 towers previously before the AR. Now we have 2 that's doing the AR. None of the 7's doing it. One of the towers is doing towing in Mercer County, so he's also trying to cover Lawrence County, which I don't know how he does that because I couldn't do it. And then the other guy is a new guy. He's out of Elwood City, so we got him on 2 big ends of the county, and they're trying to cover a huge county. So the ETAs aren't the greatest. There's a letter in there from the Hickory Township, April 19th. The call took about 45 more minutes for a towing company out of Elwood City to get to Hickory Township. The Pulaski Fire Department's complained about ETA time. The Shannock Township Fire Department's complained about ETA time. Over the past weekend, I received 2 PSP calls after midnight when the state has 1 car on for the night. They were getting backed up with calls. They needed somebody there in a quick manner. They called and said, "Mark, do you have a wrecker available?" I said, "Yes, how many do you need?" He says, "How quick can you be there?" I said, "I'll have somebody there in 15 minutes. This was after midnight on a weekend night. We got somebody up there on a Friday night, somebody back up there on a Sunday night. We got a 1-lane traffic problem on 376 with construction. I think there's been 6 or 7 accidents up there within the past week. I think they're having some response time from our AR towers. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chairman
Mark.
Sonato?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. You had told me some of the things that's going on. I just wanted that for the record because I think that's, so vitally important. I think with everyone's testimony today, the purpose, as Chairman Brar said, is we're here to get information. We want to listen to all sides, and we need to put everything on the table because, as Chairman Brar said, we are doing the 911 rewrite. That's something this committee spent a lot of time the last year and a half on. And that's something we're going to be spending a lot more time on, too. So I do thank you all for coming. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Rapp. And we would ask the questions to be, if you can, answer them very quickly if you can.
I will be very brief, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And Representative Stevenson, thank you. And I have several constituents here. This was a very informative meeting. And I know that my constituents traveled a long ways to be here, and I'm hopeful that we can come to some better resolutions for our towers across the state of Pennsylvania. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for conducting the hearing today.
Great, thank you. Representative Saccone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very quickly, it's a comment more than a question, but I'm an old investigator. I try to look at all the evidence. I try to be fair here, listen to all sides, but I tell you, I have some real concerns about paying attention to the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. And I think by AR's own testimony, they were up in Seattle. They were willing to pay attention to the letter of the law by making a tow truck to qualify them for a towing company, but not the spirit of the law when they weren't really a towing company. So I worry about when you say standards being lowered, that if someone's willing to compromise that by, following the letter and not the spirit, that we have some real concerns there that we have to take a look at. So thank you. This was very informative, and I appreciate hearing all of your testimony. And some of my constituents are here also, and they've traveled a long way to get here, and I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the representatives? Anyone? No. Gentlemen, thank you for your testimony. And one of the good things that came out is I think that the fact that teaching us the difference between a tow and a recovery, I think is a huge issue for us to consider or to be educated about, because in hearing the testimony, most of us think you just back up to a car, pull them up there and drive away. We don't see the number of times that the recovery is extremely long. You may have a car, a 10-car pilot. We saw it with the snowstorms this year. How many of the length of time it took to clear 52 some cars off the turnpike back when we had a couple bad snowstorms, 13 this year. So we thank you for your testimony. Okay, and our next testifier is Mr. John Glass. I think John and I participated in a covert operation a few years ago. It's great to have you here, John. You can begin your testimony when you get set up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is John Glass. I'm from actually Morristown, New Jersey.
Good. Me too.
I am the president of the Towing Association of New Jersey since the beginning of time. Nobody has wanted to take it since me. But I'm also legislative chairman for TRA, the National Towing Recovery Association, and that's what brings me here today, to try to help the towing industry and try to help you all understand possibly the concerns that the towing industry has in front of third-party dispatch. I'm not privy, unfortunately, to what I will say what the towers are going through, because I am not experiencing it on a first-hand basis, but we are concerned what possibly third-party dispatch is doing across the country. I am a state police tower myself in New Jersey. I've been there for 35 years doing municipality work and state police towing, so I do understand the concept of towing besides the legislative end of it. But I'd like to talk mostly on the communication end of it and try to help answer any questions you have. Incident management's been around for the early 80s, and the intention of incident management, Federal Highway put it together, and they put many, many programs together to try to move traffic and get things out of the way for safety of the public, for the responders, get the traffic moving, the trucks moving. There are all kinds of books. I happen to bring 2 of them today, thick manuals that the feds put out constantly that goes out to emergency responders on how to respond, how to do dispatching, what kind of equipment should bring, how to move vehicles. To the point, as I came into Harrisburg today, I noticed that you have road patrols out there on the highways, the yellow trucks. That's all part of incident management in a program that started many, 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 many years ago to try to be effective on moving the cars off to the side and for detection. But the biggest part that they have found over all the years for incident management is, and the biggest tool that you can use, is really communications between all your emergency responders. They've looked at the road patrols, they have looked at different dispatching, they have looked at different models, anything you can think of. But when it all comes back down to the basic thing that moves stuff quicker and faster is communications. Right now, the future direction that incident management is going, believe it or not, is direct communications with all emergency responders, listening, talking to each other, because they've realized that between the communications today between cell phones and even text messaging or whatever, if they can get that fire chief to talk to that particular tower, or that police officer, state trooper, to talk to that tower, or that fire chief, they want to do it so they can get a true understanding of what is going on. And the only way to do that is if you have a dispatcher, as far as we can see, it may be expensive, it may be time consuming, it may take a lot of resources, but if you have an individual sitting there, it's like a hub of a wheel. They are the hub, and you have all these different branches coming off to the sides. But that dispatcher is taking all the communications and the information. So if he hears or she hears from the fire department that they have an extreme condition, whatever it may be, she can now pick up her mic and say to the rescue squad, for example, I've just heard they've got injuries. It looks like 6 to 8 people. They're not sure. Maybe a fatality. They're bringing them up to speed even though the ambulance may not have arrived. And it's the same thing with the towing industry. If they're listening and hearing, they may not be directed to make that call, but at least they have a better feel of what's going on. When you have voice communication, you can also hear the urgency. Obviously, if you have anybody on there, a police officer, and he's screaming because he's got a serious, serious problem. Bring me more people. I've got injured, all the ambulances. If he's text messaging it, I'm sorry to say, you have no idea how urgent or how bad that is. Our concern is, to a certain extent, the technology is there, the ability to do it, and it's all neat stuff as far as I'm concerned, that you could sit in a patrol car or you could sit at the dispatch office and say, let me push the button and I'll type in, send me a tow truck. That's all they're going to get, send me a tow truck. They may get to say car is rolled over, but they're not hearing the urgency of whatever else that may be there. They need to go out and find someone else to respond. Now, I do agree that to a certain extent, if that dispatcher is in amongst a lot of communications and he's dispatching for all kinds of emergency responders, he does have to stop and do something for the tower. Or he may be able to turn, I would say, to his people next to him and say, I got my hands full here with EMS. Could you get that tower off the phone for me? And let's get things started. It's not impossible. That's what we all have to do. I think we will all agree that when we get the call today, then we gave up the operators in general, not for emergency response, but just an operator for anybody that you call. And you get push 1, push 2, push 3, then when you finally get there, you leave the message. Yeah, it saves communications, it saves people. But if you really want to talk and you really want an answer, you're hoping, even if you get put on hold, that you have a voice coming at you at the other end. But realistically, communications, like I say, that is the key factor, and I don't see how you can really give it up. I will agree that there is a possibility that any third-party dispatch system has the data, the communications, and the ability to control data. Excellent tools, excellent information that they could use to help the emergency responders, police departments, whatever the case may be, even you as the legislators, to try to figure it out. But going to the third step, second step, whatever you want to call it, to say, let's call California, let's call New Jersey, wherever it may be, whoever it may be, they have no idea or clue what is happening here on the highway on Interstate 80. If we look at the motor clubs to a certain extent and what they have to deal with, motor clubs have a very, very good purpose, but there are severe weather conditions. You find their lines get tied up, they can't answer calls, and they have no idea what's going in Pennsylvania for the same reason. It's because they're out in California and what have you. They got beautiful sunny weather, great life. But we don't understand either if they were dispatching from New Jersey to say, we just had a mudslide, forest fires, we can't get into that area. They have no idea. It really needs to stay home, stay in tune, and understanding what's going in the areas. Even to the point of knowing what a fire department to call, which ambulance, how to get the helicopter if necessary, how to put that helicopter on standby. It's no different than with a tower. How do we get them into the scene, and what should he bring, and who do we belong? Rotation systems, pricing, I've heard a lot about that today. Who should be on a list and who's not? I think, and I'm not sure how you're all set up, But in all honesty, if you have good guidelines, good procedures, and if any of those guidelines and procedures need to be relooked at, then I would put a committee together, sit down with them and say, we're having a problem with this area. It's not working anymore. It's old, inadequate, or we've had to move farther along. I think that can be done. I know it can be done. It goes done all over the country with the towing community, the emergency responders, and legislators and police departments if necessary. Cutting cost is always a concern. I understand what the state police are saying, and I think the state police are dealing with it, and just like municipalities anywhere across the country, they've had their fundings cut. We are in a terrible, especially today, economy just in general. We're all feeling it. And I have to say, I sympathize with them, but you can't cut costs for safety and for well-being on emergency response. The last thing, for example, you want to hear in the ambulance as you're going to the hospital is, we don't have any more tourniquets, we're out of it. You want to hear, I hope they got a whole box of them because my life is depending on it when I arrive at the other side. And that's why I said, we are emergency responder. Law enforcement is traffic control. It's dispatching. It's working with towing. It's traveling down the roadway to give tickets. It's directing traffic. It's doing road construction. It's doing accident investigations. So the same scenario. Law enforcement has a tremendous amount of activity with vehicles, towers, and what have you. If they were doing, and I'm not here to pick on them, but if they had to do an investigation, for example, criminal or prosecutor, whatever you want to call it, to build a case, you're looking at the same expenses, the same amount of time, and the same amount of what I call dedication that they're talking about, how they're taking it from what I call the towing industry, and they'd like to put it out to chase the bad guys. Even on a legal concern, as I listened today, my thoughts were, they can be sued, they can get wrapped up in lawsuits, unfortunately, at any time, anybody today, too, and I don't like to take that lightly. It's terrible. But all you have to do is have an officer say the wrong thing, have a disciplinary problem with that officer, whatever, lose his job. It could happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be a police department. You are subject to the lawsuits and the liability, just like you are with the towing. But if you put good guidelines and programs together, I really feel truly you can start to what I call, not eliminate it, but control it and try the best that you can. As a national association, if we can help you all or help the towing industry at all, we have plenty of programs, models. We've been through a lot in general. I'm the one that usually does it. To come up with programs that help you whatever you may need. When I say that, a better SOP for dispatching, a better trying to figure out who should be dispatching. I'm a little confused today myself, unfortunately, how you handle dispatching, county, local, state police. Whoever's got that main dispatch, though, is the one that needs to be funneling all that information, even if it's to that trooper. Last thing I always look at is I described, I don't want to keep you all too long because I'm kind of repeating myself, but if an officer or if a fire department or take it out of the tower's hands, in all honesty, he gets a response saying, we have a dispute at 2nd and 3rd Street, send an officer. He arrives, they figure it may be just two people having a fist fight, maybe a verbal argument, but all of a sudden he arrives and says, we have a large group and shots have been fired. That needs to go out to everybody, not push a button saying, I need help. Because responders coming in realistically need to know what he has, how big a group, where's the shots coming. Now the next discussion he may have, or next dispatch may be, I notice it's coming from the red building on the 2nd floor. Same scenario. And I'm coming in as an emergency responder. The last thing I want to do is pull in front of the 2nd building or the red building, step out and face my accuser. Fire, very easy also. Is it a pot on the stove? Do we have engulfed flames? Do we have people hanging out of windows? It's an ongoing dialogue and information that helps make it happen. Fortunately, for what I see in this third-party dispatch, it's not. It's hit a button, and they're out of it. Why would the police officer get back on the phone and try to start retyping or pushing buttons to get more data? He doesn't have the time, but he has had the time to hook up his phone my telephone and say, as he's walking there, get me more, let them know, or have that tower call me. The best thing to do is really working together. I was going to, and I don't think I want to go into that direction right now. I was going to talk about what I feel good government and responsibility is, and even good policing is. Everybody getting together to solve problems and not trying to push it through. I will direct that to the third-party dispatch group, though, because he talked about technology as being the future, and he's right. But technology also brings a push of a button and information to find out who to call. When I say call, when you're coming into an area. If I were to go into Oklahoma tomorrow, I may not know the towing association or even who's in charge of towing in Oklahoma, or even know who the troopers are that are involved. But I bet you if I got on the internet, Googled, whatever, I could get that information, a phone call, and say, gentlemen, I'm coming to town. I'd like to meet you, what have you. It's not their, unfortunately, it's not to their best interest to get the towers involved till the end. The only other thing I would say to you, and I'll take any questions, is I think you really need to look at, anybody needs to look at, it's nothing against any individual. If this is such a wonderful thing to be involved with, why do the police want out of it? Obviously, the police do not want to have anything to do with the towers. This group over here is trying to get as much as he can. I don't think he's doing it because he wants to be a friend. I really don't think they want to do it because they want to make the system better. It has to be dollar driven, like it or not. How much driven? All depends on how far you dig and what their recourses are. They are a business, just like the towers, just like any business. They're there for the dollars, and if they can make it, terrific. I think they possibly put a great program together for technology, but that's where it should stay, and there is a good chance that you could find other businesses doing the same scenario. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Glass? Anyone? No. Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Okay. We are going to end with a couple closing statements. Chairman Sonato, would you like to go first?
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman Barrar. I think this was a very good hearing. We went over 5 hours and 10 minutes. This is probably the longest hearing we've had as a committee in the last 3.5 years since Chairman Barrar and I became the chairman. But I think the time was well spent absorbing, listening, and getting the information. We had a lot of members come in, out today, because there's a lot of activity here. Even though this is a non-session week, we are here doing people's business, as you all see, and we thank you for coming from all over the state to be with us today, because it is vitally important. It's a very critical issue. I know for my towers back home, we've had that conversations, and the number one goal is, I know Representative Costa said, Chairman Barrar stressed, is public safety. I think that's something you can put a price tag on. So I do thank everyone for their time, efforts, and we look forward as this process moves forward. Thank you.
Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman Barrar. I'd like to thank you and Chairman Marsko for holding this hearing on this vitally important issue. As I said at the outset, I hope that what comes from this hearing is a way forward. And we had a lot of suggestions, I think good suggestions today about legislative approaches and other ideas as well, and those will all be taken into account. I want to thank everyone for coming today and for sticking with us through the 5 hours, and wish you all safe travel on the way home. Thank you.
I know a lot of the representatives that have stayed have constituents in the audience. Did you want to make any closing statement at this time, any of the representatives? I'll start with Representative Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indeed, it was a long hearing and certainly worthwhile. I did want to recognize that Dan Donald's here from Beaver County from Moore's Auto Wrecking, and I've met with him and other towers and recovery and tow personnel in Beaver County. Certainly welcome him to Harrisburg and thank him for his time spent here. And I also wanted to mention I have a great deal of respect, and I owe a lot of thanks to Representative Stevenson from introducing me to this issue. Certainly was probably in his area before mine in Beaver County, but he's been a leader in this effort, and all of his constituents should know how hard he's worked for them, especially on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Did Representative Costa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank everyone. I think we all look at you as all of our constituents. I'm here to look out for everyone on both parts. I'm looking out for the businesses. I'm looking out for my troopers. And one thing Commissioner Noonan, I caught one day when he was talking, he said, "My troopers." Okay, that tells me he has a great love and respect for his troopers. When I was the chief of police, they were my officers. So these are my troopers, and I'm looking out for them too. And I want to make sure that we get something that's fair. Instant communication is very, very important. When 9/11 hit, we lost all communications with cell phones, computers, but guess what? The two-way radios in Pittsburgh worked. That's the only thing that got us through, and we were able to manage our department and keep us going. So I want to wish everyone Godspeed home and a safe trip, and I thank you very much. Chairman, thank you for having this.
Thank you. Anyone else want to make a statement? Okay. It was a good hearing, rather longer than we thought. We had actually planned to be out of here by 12:30, 1 o'clock, which is shows the interest level of this, the fact that so many of the members stayed the entire length of the hearing. We did hear quite a bit of conflicting testimony during this hearing, and I think it raises still a lot more questions that need to be answered. Our concern here, our primary concern here, is emergency response and a response time of our towers. I know our constituents get very impatient when the roads are blocked, they can't get through, they're coming home from work, and that's their main concern, is how fast can we get the roads clear. Okay, where we go from here is not exactly clear. The decision to enter into this contract is an executive decision, and the only solution then for us as legislators would be to do some type of legislative solution. We've heard about licensing, which I think is a reality of that what could be done here. I don't know if it corrects the other issue here, because then there's still the issue of inspections and enforcement and due process that the towers would have to adhere to. I hope the state police, in moving forward with this pilot program, will keep us informed of what is going on, the concerns that you're hearing from the towers and also from AR, and that we would like to be part of that final determination along with the towers and the first responders if this pilot program goes forward. To the towers that are currently in the system, I think it's imperative that you stay in touch with your legislators to report to them what you're hearing, what you're experiencing, so that we can document that for you. And we need to be your eyes and ears in this, and your voice. And it's important that you not just think that because the hearing is over, that it's over. We want to continue this. We're going to, believe me, I think everyone at this, every representative at this hearing was passionate about the information that was put out here, and we want to continue hearing from you. So don't be afraid to call us or email, not just us, but also your representative if they weren't here today, to let them know your thoughts on this. I want to thank everyone for their patience, for their testimony. It was a very long hearing, but it's an important issue to this committee. And I thank you all for being here. God bless you all. Thank you.